Good day. My name is Fel Cesar Cadiz, and I'm the Director of Behavior Adoption and Training for Rare's Fish Forever program in the Philippines. Today, I'm going to share to you a real-world example of how behavior-centered design approach has been applied to a complex conservation challenge to create behavior adoption. This behavior-centered journey starts in Tinambak, a town in northern Luzon region of the Philippines. Tinambak has a population of about 65,000 people and where primary industries are fishing, farming, and seaweed growing. Around 1,000 registered fishers use the 209 square kilometers of municipal waters, mostly in San Miguel and Lamit Bays. In the 1990s, fishing pressure from local and industrial fishers in Tinambak became so great that the future sustainability of the town's critical resource base was in dire condition. 80 to 90% of local fishers use cyanide and dynamite to stun and kill fish. And it was common for locals to hear 50 to 20 blasts a day. In 2010, a local NGO called Network of Sustainable Livelihood Catalyst and founded by a young, enterprising local leader named Kathy Demesa began partnering with Rare to promote a better path forward for Tinambak's fishing industry. Kathy focused on the following four key target behaviors. Fishers become registered. Fishers participate in community-based management. Fishers record and use catch data for management decision-making. And fishers fish with the right gear in the right place at the right time. To better understand their target audience, Kathy conducted qualitative and quantitative research from a sample of 12,000 households in the area. Sorting the data she collected, Kathy found out that there was an average household size of 5 people, and with an average monthly income of fishers of 40 to 65 US dollars or less, and that primary fishing gear and methods used in the area included net, hook and line, spear fishing, cyanide fishing, dynamite fishing, seaweed farming, compressor, bottom set longline, and traps. She found out that fishers see themselves as the main providers of their families, and that while the Marine Protected Area Ordinance, written by the local leaders and established in 2006, and while 95% of residents claim knowledge about importance of the sanctuaries, they still believe that they and not the sanctuary are the law and that violations are a commonplace. She also realized that fishers saw registration as a hassle, requiring a lot of time and travel to complete. Other barriers include fishers finding it hard to identify the boundaries of the MPA in the municipal waters, and distrust of outside interventions due to numerous failed livelihood projects in the area over the years. She found a strong place-based identity and feelings of ownership of natural resources, and strong spiritual and religious beliefs that fish resources are limitless and that God will provide and nature will replenish the stocks. As a result, Kathy hypothesized that fishers would be motivated to do the four key behaviors if she appealed to key values in the community, helped to establish visible social norms and expectations, and peer enforcement in accordance with local regulations, leverage key influencers such as family members and local mayors, and by making it easier to register and recognize the boundaries of the MPA. Her four hypotheses were: if I change belief and attitudes of how local values relate to fishing, then I expect a change in not fishing in the reserve for fishers. If I change the visibility of no-take zones, then I expect a change in not fishing in the reserve for fishers. If I change expectation of enforcement practices, then I expect a change in not fishing in the reserve for fishers. And lastly, if I change expectation of local leaders supporting marine protected areas, then I expect a change of fishers not fishing in the reserve. The resulting intervention used a combination of many strategies to provide multiple motivations for each of the desired behaviors. After brainstorming and bundling, Kathy balanced her intervention by considering the capacity of the team, the resources available, and the constraints that narrow her intervention ideas. One of the ideas Kathy prototyped in Tinambak was to create a mascot who could popularize the ideal fisher who adapted the four behaviors, called Profi, short for professional fisher. Profi sought to borrow a respected title often used for academic professors to make fishing, traditionally seen as a livelihood of last resort, something for fishers to be proud of and for the committee members to respect. Profi would represent a sustainable fisher identity and demonstrate the appropriate managed access behaviors publicly. Additionally, when fishers become registered, they would become known as profis. This idea incorporated insights from the previous steps through A, making fishing something to be proud of, B, strengthening fishers' sense that they are part of a group and that gives them a reason to cooperate, C, making their behavior observable so there's a social benefit to doing it, and D, creating a memorable and simplified way to engage with the four key behaviors. Kathy, as you can see here with the eyeglasses and holding the paper, and her team created a Profi mascot who appeared at community events and began to affix the Profi brand to various components of her intervention in Tinambak. With its early success, she knew that this would be a good strategy to use in a full-scale intervention. When the intervention has been sufficiently tested and revised, it is time to launch at full scale. This might mean at the full audience or community-wide scale, as well as incorporating additional strategies from the IJADE step. In Kathy's case, early successes with the Profi idea in Tinambak were so promising that the Profi brand was quickly scaled across more sustainable fisheries management project sites in the Philippines, where they are still being piloted today to encourage a wider set of behaviors. During this step, we also need to define metrics for evaluating our intervention that will guide our assessment in the next step. For example, in the case of Kathy, she focused on the relative health of the fishery and the community pre and post intervention. Intertwined with full-scale launch and implementation is the critical importance of assessing the impact of your intervention and reflecting on potential improvements. This step helps us understand if behavior is happening and to what degree, so that we can share our success, but more importantly, so that we can adapt and revise the intervention as needed. Particularly in the case like overfishing and sustainable fisheries management, solving for a complex adaptive system means the system itself and the behaviors that it influences are themselves continuously changing. and therefore no single intervention is permanent and constant solution. One of the major success indicators for Tinambak was fish biomass. As a result of the Profi strategy and campaign, fish biomass in the MPA increased from 33 tons per square kilometer prior to the intervention to 55 tons per square kilometers per 4 years later. While behavioral insights may not hold all the answers, we do know that they are a crucial part to making behavior change happen in the short and long term. We encourage you to take what you've learned here and test the strategies for yourself. This is about using good behavioral science, but also about good measurement and evaluation. Human behavior is complex and change is difficult. It is therefore imperative that whatever tools we are using, we robustly measure the impact so that we can learn. Without integrating this evaluative approach, we cannot build on our successes nor learn from our failures. Whether it's climate change, invasive species, animal welfare, or water consumption, the strategies we've shared are applicable across all domains of human behavior. We hope that this real-world example empowers you with a set of tools to be change agent in your field of work, whatever it may be.